Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Finance Committee meeting for Thursday, March 5th. The TNRD acknowledges that we connect with many First Nations communities across our vast regional district, and today we are located on the Tecumseh-Swetman territory, situated within the unceded ancestral lands of the Swetman Nation. The TNRD appreciates the partnership that we have with Tecumseh-Swetman and respect the territory and the land on which we gather today. Are there any additions or deletions from the agenda? None seen. We'll proceed with the agenda as is. We do have some participants here today that are not on the committee, but with a motion passed through from our committee here, we can have them participate in our meeting today. So I would like to bring forward a motion that would, I was going to read it, but at any rate, that the committee allow for non-appointed board members to participate in the committee discussions related to the agenda. And the seconder, I see Director O'Toole, second. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We have the minutes from the previous Finance Committee meeting. I wonder if we please have a recommendation to approve those. Moved by Director Kerslake, seconded by Director Hall. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moving forward, our report today is a verbal report, and CO Hildebrand is going to give that report. Just query, are you open to questions during the report? So if anybody would like to speak or ask a question, if you could just raise your hand, I will try and keep track and keep a speakers list. But if I'm not paying attention to you, give me an extra wave or a little bit of a shout out so that I make sure to capture your hand. So I don't think we have anybody online other than staff. No? Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you then. Let's proceed.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to the committee. I apologize in advance. It won't be a traditional finance meeting with reports and analysis and charts and presentations. This is us trying to make sure that year-end and audit was done, and but we do want to give some updates. So I just threw a quick agenda together on some of the topics we want to talk about. Because there's lots of important things going on. It's just not formalized yet as we've been kind of scrambling the last little while, but in a good way. So I wanted to start too with a comment that I know there was some media recently that talked about rash of resignations and hiring and things like that. And in my opinion, the headline was a bit dramatic, but I can tell you, and I'd like to report that we are in really good shape in finance, and things are going extremely well. CFO Fox is still on leave, and she is off until the end of March, and that's all we know at the moment. So we haven't talked to her further, but we will be updating the board as soon as we know more information. But I just have a number of topics I'd like to go through. Mr. Potts here is going to also join me. I got to say that Austin's leadership and the entire finance team has been completely amazing and outstanding over the last number of weeks as we've gone through some really important processes with year end and with our financial audits. That's all complete, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And I feel like staff are in a good place right now. We've made a permanent hire. We've done some promotions. So we actually are fully staffed as of right now, and things are going well. And you'll kind of hear about what our next steps are here as I go through this. So I'm going to just start with 2025 year end and the audit update. And I'll get Mr. Potts to jump in on this one. But from my perspective, our year end went extremely well. And our auditors were quite impressed with our preparation. Their pre-audit that they did earlier was very successful. And when they came in, they spent just about a week and a half here, did everything they needed to do. I know Austin, myself, answered all the questions they had. From our perspective at this time, there was no deficiencies, no issues, no concerns, but we plan on having BDO and Mario back here for the meeting on March 25th to do his normal yearly update on how the audit went. So that'll be coming up as well. But I'll pass it maybe over to Austin just to give some comments on year end and our audit as it stands today.
Honestly, I don't have too much to add above what Scott was giving you there. For our year-end processes, we have very strict controls that have been previously established that we followed for year-end. Obviously, we were dealing with a bit of staff turnover at that time, but we still closed our year-end within a few days of when we were scheduled to close it despite that. The audit proceeded as scheduled. They showed up when they were expected to show up, and they left actually before they were expected to leave. They were scheduled to be here for 2 weeks, but they were here for, as Scott noted, about a week and a half. In my conversations with our auditors and the work that they were doing, the samples that they were selecting, they did not note any deficiencies to me. I received feedback that it was one of our smoothest audits in the building that we've had. So overall, I'm feeling pretty positive about both the year end and the audit.
Any questions at all on year end or audit?
Frederick Grenier.
Thank you, Chair. Good to hear that everything's rolling along. Yeah. Just this is a back of the house question, but what's our age payables and receivables looking like? Is there anything beyond 90 days?
We don't have anything outstanding for our payables right now beyond 90 days. That's a concern. There's always a couple of little things that sit in there as we're waiting for, say, a vendor to confirm payment information for us, or if we're discussing a deficiency with a vendor. But our payables and receivables haven't grown from what we've previously reported. There's been no growth or no concerns.
Great. Moving on to the next topic is just day-to-day operations that kind of dovetails to Director Graney's question a little bit too. Is our focus now is kind of back to normal. So we now need to close January, we need to close February, and get going on March. And I know that's the focus for Mr. Potts and the team. Get back to normal again. So things are going well there, and we expect to. I believe it's next week. We are going to close January. The week after, we'll close February, and then we'll be back up to date as of March. And then we have a new employee. Janine is going to be starting, I think it's March 23rd. So we will transition her, bring her up to speed, and she will be the other manager within the finance team. So it'll be Austin and Janine that'll lead that. We're just kind of working through those details now, but from a high level, Janine will be looking after the day-to-day operations as she kind of ramps up. And Austin will be more on the reporting side and the budget side and that sort of thing. So we think we have a good process, and we think we have a good plan put out there, and we're excited to have Janine join us in the next coming couple of weeks. So we will then be fully staffed and up and running. Any other comments, Austin, on that?
Just to alleviate any potential concerns and also talk a little bit more about Director Grenier's comment. When we're in the process of audit, typically what happens with the team structure is you have the tech level staff that are continuing to do their regular work. So that would be like payments that we're making to vendors, receiving money, doing our collections efforts. That doesn't change during audit. And then the seniors' job, they typically will shift away from doing reconciliation review, working with the staff to get through backlogs of work, and shift most of their focus over to that audit. So while we say shifting back to our day-to-day focus, closing January, we have still been making our regular payments, collecting cash, working with utility customers, et cetera, throughout the whole audit. It's just actually wrapping up and signing off on reconciliations, closing modules in our financial system. So no concerns there. We just have it open a little bit longer than usual because of year-end and audit.
Any questions at all on kind of next steps or day-to-day operations? I'm feeling very comfortable with kind of the team we have, and I think we're going to be in good shape here going forward. So unless there's any questions, I can move on to budget and budget process.
None seen, so proceed, thanks.
So the other big shift now is getting back to budget. So everyone would have seen the provisional budget that we presented to the board back in December. And we had some work to do. We had a really great committee of the whole meeting, I thought, where we went through development services, and we went through solid waste as well, and made some strong recommendations on some of the things we needed to change. As we closed year end for 2025, there was additional surplus. A lot of things were working in a very positive way. and I feel like we are in good shape from a budget standpoint. Mr. Potts is going to kind of take the lead on budget next meeting on the 25th, I believe it is March, where we'll actually finalize our budget. We are gonna, and I'm gonna let Austin speak to this, but we are gonna change it up a little bit and present it a little bit differently to the board. And I know here he's got something that he wants to share with you a little bit and give you a chance to provide any feedback. But I would say that our budget's in great shape. We've come down significantly, both from an EA director level and from a municipality level. I can't say quite yet exactly what that number is. I think that makes sense to bring that to the entire board on the 25th, but we are trending in a really strong direction, and I feel like we'll be into that 5 range where we are hoping to get versus where we were closer to 7 or even 8 when we first started this process back in November. So that's good news, but haven't finalized that yet. We're just working through that. And maybe I'll get Austin just talk about an example that he has in front of you and maybe just some general information on how he plans on presenting the budget to the board and get your feedback on that.
So we're on track to begin public consultation by the end of this week. I'll have probably a binded report up at the front desk by the end of the week with all the budget reports. In your package, you should have a little page there for the Community Parks Area A budget. When I was looking at the budget report that you received for provisional and what we've got in the past, one of the things that I noted is that we have a lot of information for services that's in different places. And so this page that you have is kind of an example of the cover page that you'll get for each service for the final budget on the 26th. And you have this box at the top that tells you the change in tax for the service, both dollars and percent. You can see the reserve balances that are specifically attached to that service. Below it, you'll see an income statement for the service. The next page, which isn't in this specific package, but you'll get it for final, will have a list of all the capital projects that are attached to that service so that you can look at a cover page, see which services are specific to your interests, and you can flip to the page and see all the information for that service on its own, self-contained. Hopefully that makes it a little bit easier to digest the budget. I mean, it's still going to be a 350 page report that each of you are going to have, but hopefully this makes it a little bit easier to digest on the reporting side. On the presentation side, what I'm wanting to do is, when I looked at the presentation that we did for you at Provisional, it was a very, very detailed presentation where we went through a lot of information and kind of explored the whole budget from cover to cover, basically. And so I did a little bit of looking into what some of the other regional districts are doing, and I really, really like what the style of the Capital Regional District's budget presentation for final, where instead of focusing on the budget overall, they're focusing on what has changed since provisional so that they can dive into it in more detail. Because in theory, you have already reviewed provisional, you know what's in provisional. We don't need to focus on stuff that hasn't changed since provisional. So we'll have more of a deep dive, but on a smaller scope of information. It'll be only things that have changed since provisional, and some of those changes are things that you would already know about. Some of it is operational changes, but we'll get into that with the actual presentation. I'm just hoping that that makes it a little bit easier for you to have oversight over what has changed and then increase the accountability a little bit of us as staff to show you what we've changed since you've approved the last budget.
Director Grenier, then I have a quick question after that. I'm not sure if anybody else wants to comment or ask a question. Put your hand up if you do. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Austin. This is very encouraging. It gives us a 5-year presentation. It gives us dollars and percentages. One of the things that I have found a challenge, quite apart from 260 pages of documents, is trying to break out transfers or you've got on this internal transfers. I'm not talking specifically about internal transfer, but I'm talking about transfers that mask, in my mind, the true expenses or the true revenue side. And I'm wondering, I've raised this in the past, what your thoughts are on if we had a subtotal of true expenses and then a category that deals with the transfers in, transfers out, so that when we're looking at a balance sheet of, say, this item, we're not confusing between actual costs like insurance and internal transfer. When we look at the net expense item, and I'm not saying we don't want the net expense item, but if we had it subtotaled so that transfers were a line item below actual expenses, and I suppose the same thing if there was a transfer in the revenue. This gets to be a big deal when we have a much bigger department than this, the ins and the outs. So I just wonder if you have any comment on that.
It's definitely something that we can look into for the next rendition of budget. I don't know that there's necessarily enough time to look at that for this budget presentation. The reason that that's challenging is because even if you just look at this example of this community parks area A budget, when we say that there's a $36,000 internal transfer for reserve, if you wanted to allocate that in 2026 between the surplus and taxation, you would have to make some judgment calls there on how much of it is actually allocated from the surplus and how much is taxation. So, and then once you start getting into this, what is the surplus? You're looking back at previous years and trying to determine, is it taxation from previous years related to expenses that we didn't spend? Is it a reserve transfer that didn't need to happen? What is it? So it's more of a bigger picture, in-depth analysis of each service that really adds a lot of time. So it's not impossible. It's just a pretty large project.
Supplemental to that, I appreciate, I'm not trying to spend people's time. I'm thinking that if there was a subcategory, we're not missing it. We're just apportioning it on a subtotal. And I say that because, as you've just demonstrated in your answer to that, somebody is using their discretion to say this is an amount for this transfer. And that's different than I have to pay a bill for insurance. The bill for insurance is I got to put my glasses on, $1,591, $1,591. But the internal transfer to reserve of 36,000 is somebody's judgment, and that's not the same as an actual expense. So if we're looking at a department, say the planning department, and they've incurred costs, those are costs. And then if we have a transfer from to or from surplus, that's a discretionary item that can somehow mask what the true outcome of expense and revenue is. So I just raise it. I appreciate the answer. If you could just consider that moving forward.
Go ahead.
I believe the next finance committee meeting's in June. I can bring a couple samples of this with maybe different presentations that show that amount separately, if that would. And then we can look at those and see if any of those presented in a way that the board or the committee like more.
We can commit to that for sure.
Thank you. You don't need a motion or anything to have that done. That can just
No,
be.
we will, it'll be in the minutes, and
last-
we'll do that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Mine's a little simpler, I think. I'm just wondering on the headings when we're handed, I'm going to say a document like this. I still struggle to remember where Area A is, what it's called, and who the director is that's in charge of that. So I sort of look at this, okay, this is good, except now I'm kind of looking around to sort of say, okay, where is Area A? And do I go and sort of look at the map? Because I haven't gotten them memorized, to be honest with you. So is it possible at all to just add into on the header there when we say Area A, the actual area name, and then potentially the director for that area, just so that we, as we're reading or trying to prepare for the meeting, we might have a sort of a bit of an at a glance at what area this is of particular interest to.
I don't see that being too difficult to do. I could put that in there.
Thank you.
That's a good question though, because it is confusing sometimes because there's specified services, there's EA services, there's municipal, it all kind of blends together. When you have 140 services, it's understandable. So, no, that makes sense. Just to follow up on Austin's comments then and some of the questions we had, I think our whole point of the presentation coming up to the board for our final budget presentation is to simplify things, to make it really easy to understand, to really focus in on kind of what's changed between provisional and final. So based on what Austin has showed me so far, I'm quite happy with kind of what that will look like. We're expecting it to be kind of a 30-minute presentation during that meeting that I think Austin will do a great job kind of doing the overview. Him and I will work together on that. And then you'll still have Director Grenier 260 or 300 pages to sift through. But that's part of the due diligence to make sure that all the detail are there for the public and for the board. But we are in good shape. We feel like we're going to be bringing a positive budget forward, and barring any surprises the next few weeks, I think we're on the right track. So any other questions on kind of upcoming budget or the process? We'll also be updating our website with, of course, all the new numbers. So when you have those EA and municipal specific data, that will all be on there with the new reflection of the numbers. Taxation will come into that. So Austin will walk the board through kind of how that impact will happen with taxation and all the things that made the change to where it's at today. So that's it for that one. I kind of touched base on this already as far as the finance team structure. So as I mentioned, CFO Fox is still away until end of March as of now. So right now, Austin is kind of leading the team. We have Janine starting, which those will be the two managers within that finance team. We have then a group of folks that there's almost two kind of what's the word? Senior technicians, and then a smaller group of frontline technicians that kind of pull all this work together. They've been doing an amazing job, and my hat goes out to them. I'm very proud of that team and everything we've accomplished in the last couple months to get to where we're at. I think we have the right structure. We didn't add any FTEs. We didn't add any new people. It's just we changed it around a little bit with the overall structure, and I think it'll be just a little bit more efficient. So looking forward to Janine starting here in a few weeks, and yeah, we're well on our way. So that was all I had to say as far as the structure goes, unless there was any questions.
None seen, so carry on. Thanks.
The next one is one of the biggest projects we've ever, and it happened to be in the same year where we've had other struggles and things that are changing, but our finance software system and our HRIS project update. That is a massive undertaking for this organization. We've had such antiquated and old systems that the board is aware of. We are moving into a modern era now of just new technology and trying to get some better efficiency. So I'll get Austin just to kind of give you an update on the finance software system change, and then I'll get Amanda to give us a little bit of an update on the HRIS project as well. Austin.
Thanks, Scott. So Business Central is the system that we're moving into. It's a Microsoft product. So far, our implementation partner has been great to work with. I've been really impressed. They've let us know that multiple times that they're quite impressed with us as well. Corey is doing a fantastic job managing the project from our side. They've given us tons of compliments on that. Currently, we've provided them with our full GL structure, and they're in the process right now of configuring the new system for us. We're in kind of this interim period right now where they do their own internal testing based on months worth of data collection from us on our specifications, our requirements, what our current structure looks like, what we want. Once they finish with that, we'll move into kind of our internal testing phase where they'll work with us, train us a little bit on the system and get us testing things. We're still on track. The idea is that we go live in August, probably around the 20th. From there, we probably have 5 or 6 months worth of development that will happen after that. And that will be improvements, automation. Honestly, there's some pretty cool stuff in this system. There's a lot of efficiencies that we don't have right now that are going to make everyone's life a lot easier in the system and allow us to spend more time working on like value add reporting, working with budget managers, increasing cash flow. There's some cool stuff in there with the payables system where it times all the payments per vendor based on due dates of invoices, and it's a pretty slick system.
Can you share the new module?
Yeah, they have this, they just recently released, they call it the payables agent, and what it does is you connect it to an inbox. In this case, we'd connect it to our AP inbox, and the system will, when it receives an email, it goes into the email, checks who it's from, pulls the PDF, reads vendor information off the PDF, enters it automatically into the system, puts it into the queue to be approved by someone, and it's all automated. So instead of someone having to actually like go into an email, pull it out, read information off the email, code it, it's all done by the system. So then the technician actually spends the time looking at that invoice, making sure we're paying it right, making sure that the terms are correct, and doing more error checking instead of manual data entry.
Sounds exciting. How, or what is the safeguard against spammed and junk emails that, I mean, my business gets a ton of them with, POs and EFTs and stuff like that, just all this sort of junk and spam. If this system is automatically or is sort of accessing these emails and then taking that information and putting it into the system, what's the safeguard that our system isn't being, sort of either hacked or corrupted by spammy emails that come looking very legit and come specific with either accounts receivable or accounts payable text and attachments in them?
So that's kind of I have a two-part answer for that. The first is, so like some of those spearhead phishing attack emails, that's a lot more on our IT side. Dave Keller does lots of training with the organization on identifying those emails and making sure that we're not falling victim to those attacks. He sends out training, he sends out tests for people, is very, very thorough with that. So I'm pretty confident on that end. And then on the new system side, any invoice that gets read by the new system, there's still always going to be a person that looks at it. It's just that the person will spend less time doing actual typing and more time critically thinking about it. So I would say, if anything, we're actually more likely to reduce the potential for that to happen because we now have someone critically thinking about it instead of typing out numbers and doing data.
If I could add to that as well, I think we're doing some cybersecurity training at noon today with the board, and that would be a perfect question there for Dave, because we probably redirect thousands of emails, malicious emails every month to this organization that could cause us problems that kind of work through his team and quarantine them. And so we're quite, I'm very happy at how advanced we are when it comes to that. I mean, there's always a chance, but we're doing pretty well when it comes to that. So that training today will be timely. So.
Yes, and thanks. And I just thought, in my thinking, is this new system actually opening up these emails and has it already been compromised basically the minute that I'm going to say a computer-based system opens that up? Is that door in that's already occurred by the time somebody else has a look at it? So
This will
yeah.
still go through our firewall. It'll still go through all those layers of security that we've put in place prior to ever kind of getting into our system.
Okay, thank you.
Amanda, do you have a quick update for us?
Director Grenier had his hand up, so just ask a question.
Thank you, Chair. You mentioned that you've been going through the GL mapping, or that's often an opportunity to really clean house, reassign codes and what have you. And I think when I think about all of the different, the EAs and all of the municipalities and all the rest of it, it's really an opportunity. So is that you're putting a lot of time in on that, I imagine, because that's a very useful thing going forward.
That question makes me really excited because it is something that I've spent a lot of time on and that Corey also helped out with too, quite a lot. Our existing chart of accounts is scary. It's about 6,500 accounts. And you're right, we have accounts for each EA for specific, every single expense in every single service has its own account. The new chart of accounts in our new system at this point is about 250 accounts. So we've trimmed that from 6,500 to 250. And a really big part of the way that we were able to clean that up so much is because the new system allows us to tag things. So instead of having a specific account for, say, fire protection Blackpool, we would have a maintenance account, and then we would tag that with fire protection Blackpool separately, so it doesn't have to have its own GL account. So yes, we've done quite a lot of cleanup on our chart of accounts, and both us and the implementation partner were keen to spend this time and set it up properly and make sure that our chart of accounts gets in there efficiently.
Thanks. I don't see any other hands up, so would like to carry on.
Great. Miss Allison?
Thank you. Austin spoke quite well to a few of the same project phases that we're working through with our HRIS system. So we start with kind of building it, and that's where we're heavy into building this phase. So with HRIS, we went with a product called UKG. They're also our implementation partner. So we're spending a lot of time building up that system so that it accurately completes our payroll and timekeeping processes for all of our staff, our libraries, fire halls. So it is a big undertaking. In terms of timeline, we're building that right now, probably for the next couple months. Then we'll move into a solid testing phase for a couple months and anticipating a go live in July. Tentatively at this point in time. So kind of following along suit with the finance system. Things like mapping GLs is something that the system also has to integrate with. So we want to make sure we're coordinated, not setting up the new HRIS system to read to an old system that we're going to switch. So we're timing that quite closely so that everything moves together to a new system really well. We also got notification that some of our current software, so we use Deltek as an applicant tracking system. It's actually a product that they're phasing out and is no longer available in future years. So it was kind of reassuring that we're moving ourselves into better suited technology for the long run. Adjacent to some of this conversation, I just thought it might be worthwhile to touch on another project that we have ongoing from a corporate services technology perspective on document and content management, because that will also be a big piece in terms of integrating file automation and sharing with these new systems. So when we look at reading the POs or scanning POs, a document records management system and a software such as Microsoft Purview adds another layer of protection in terms of scanning and moving these documents to and from different systems in a much seamless way. So it's a third kind of smaller project that's starting along the same path as these two, because when we look at the ability of our new finance system to read our files, the files have to be in a SharePoint or Purview platform. They can't read them from our current platform. So moving our files over into a more integratable platform with additional security. So kind of a smaller kind of layered project that's supporting the success of these two at the same time.
Amanda, could you share the example we talked about for as an FOI example and the efficiency we'll gain from something like that number we talked about it the other day? Just if you could just share that because I think that'll hit home.
Yeah, Kara will probably be able to jump in, our deputy corporate officer, with more information on that. But basically, Purview helps the searchability of files quite significantly. So instead, right now, when we get a FOI request, there's a manual process for Kara and department managers involved to go dig through email records, Tempest folders, we have different files in different systems and software across the organization. When we move to a SharePoint system, all those files will connect into their Purview. We'll read them all. So we can simply type in, we need information on XYZ from 2012 in June. And it will grab those files for us in a much more efficient manual and save some of that manual work of digging across multiple systems and in paper and non-paper formats. Like that.
Yeah, thank you for that. Because when Amanda and I were talking about it, it was just like that one FOI request could save us hours and hours of time and digging and going through binders and scanning and looking at old files. Kara, is there anything you want to add?
Well, sure, I'll add to that as well. I think they explained it quite well, but just even a step further to explain that the significant amount of time that we currently spend sort of doing this search, both manual and electronic files. Currently, when we're searching, it's searching a file name, but not within a document. And so when we switch to a more modernized platform, it can search for keywords within the document itself, but you don't necessarily have to know the exact file name to be able to retrieve something. So the time, the efficiency, the effectiveness of a technology-assisted sort of search, discovery, review is greatly enhanced by it. Yeah.
Great, any other questions? No, I think we can go on to item 7 then.
Great, and this one isn't really necessarily for this committee because this committee doesn't oversee the hospital board, but I just wanted, but you're all on the hospital board, so I just wanted to mention that that budget is coming up as well. That'll come on the at the end of the month, and we will be, that one is a lot simpler, so Austin's going to be managing that one as well, but we're in good shape there from a hospital board budget as well. And things are going extremely well there. We've got our relationships with IH continue to improve and get better. And I think we're in a good spot there as far as what that budget's going to look like. And it'll be as expected, what the board expects. So nothing changing there other than I just wanted to let this group be aware that it's coming and it should be positive.
Thank you. Oh, final question. Director Grenier.
Thank you, Chair. On the hospital board, it's come up in the past in the meetings at the hospital board that there's this approval of items under 100,000 and then a bigger one. And it kind of gets approved and then sort of parked. And then they come back and say, oh yeah, we spent it or we didn't spend it or we carried forward or oh yeah, we canceled the project. And I had asked the question in previous times, what happens to monies that we've approved for a project and the project gets canceled? Does that money somehow surface and show up saying, oh, by the way, this is a surplus? So I'm just thinking that as you're going through this new process, that it would be a good practice to have something that somehow kind of tracks that. And I don't have any suggestion on it other than tracking it would be very useful for the board.
So I actually do track that. I have for every single approved bylaw, you're talking about the major capital and the minor capital bylaws. For both of those, I have a detailed tracking file by project, by bylaw that shows the exact spend on each project. I reconcile it at year end. And then once in a while, Interior Health sends me a closed project listing where I go through and any projects that they either did or didn't do, we mark those off as completed. I typically leave to Interior Health to be the ones to actually present the status updates of projects to the board, because all I can really see is what's been spent or hasn't been spent on a bylaw. I don't know the reasoning or the whys or what else might be going on. But if the hospital board was interested and wanted to see that, I could definitely put together a report showing current up-to-date spend by project, by bylaw.
Just supplemental to that. So as I'd asked earlier about the 90 days, perhaps we pick a time period, say 3 years. If you haven't spent it within a 3-year time frame or whatever they think is a reasonable period from ask to deployment, that we somehow have something that ticks up and says, oh, it's been 3 years since they asked for this money, but they haven't done anything with it. Something like that, so that and maybe a report that goes with it that says this amount of money was asked for 3 years ago, you haven't done it, please account for it at the next meeting or something like that, or a tool that we could use for that. So that's the carry on from your tracking, I think.
That's certainly something that the hospital board could request that we start to do. At this point, we haven't received any direction to be following up with them after 3 years or X amount of time. But maybe if we start with a report showing the overall by bylaw amounts that are still outstanding, and if the board has additional direction at that time, they could provide it.
If I could jump in as well, your question's timely because there's a couple of things I want to mention. One is that recently there was a project that was canceled and I can't remember the value. It might have been upwards of $800,000 where they then adjusted, adjusted the letter. And they asked to us and basically removed that and updated that letter. So that just recently happened. So we do track it quite carefully. But the other thing to consider, and this will be a discussion with the hospital board, of course, but we are the only hospital board in the interior that goes through their asks kind of project in detail by detail. Every other regional district hospital board, they get an ask of, call it $2 million. The board then gives them a grant for $2 million. They go and do all the work and it's on them then to come back and reconcile everything to the penny. But we debate and go through it. I remember a few years ago, this was previous board where the board got hung up on a dishwasher and how a dishwasher could potentially cost $30,000. And we get into the weeds a lot when it's like they are the ones that need to know and do know what they need for capital. But it's on them to be able to reconcile in that. So there's a new process that Chair O'Reilly and I are going to bring to the hospital board on how we may want to look at that, because we cause Interior Health a lot more work than the other hospital districts. And there's probably an easier way to do it that may address some of your questions as well and be more timely in how things are reconciled. So we'll be talking in the upcoming board meeting too with that. So.
I had, what were we calling you? Acting Finance Manager Potts, Finance Manager Potts. And then had a comment to make, and then I'll come back to you, Director Archer.
I just wanted to, one other thing, I didn't answer one of Grenier's questions. If we receive a bylaw that has a project on it and we tax for it and then they cancel the project or underspend on the project, yes, it flows back into future years as a surplus. That's part of the reason actually why, if you look at the provisional budget for the hospital, the expected borrowing for the cancer clinic is so much lower than the actual project cost, is because of these surpluses and investments that we've carried forward year after year that we've been able to make grow.
Thank you. Director O'Toole.
Just an anecdotal comment to the dishwasher. And this just goes back, I think, to getting down in the weeds about things. As somebody who's a hotelier and a restaurateur, $30,000 for a commercial dishwasher doesn't flag me in the slightest. So an under-counter one in a bar is $6,000. A large one in a big commercial kitchen at a hotel can be $20,000 to $40,000 easily. So when we around this table, many of us probably don't have that experience, get bogged down in a detail like that. It's not necessarily good use of our time.
Oh, fair enough. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Just a question for me, and I perhaps should know this already, but maybe we'll just for clarification. The hospital board finances of which the TNRD looks after, does that get moved onto the new financial system as well too? So you're not trying to operate two different systems, one for TNRD and one for hospital?
You're correct. It'll all be under the same scope. Yeah, everything is exactly, we'll be using the same system for all of our financial needs.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other hands. Oh, spoke too soon. Not quite the last.
Thank you, Chair. This is a little bit off topic, but we hear so much about AI now. And I was just wondering if the staff had looked to see how AI is going to be used, because it is going to be everywhere. And if we have any sort of idea of where it's going to be used and how. It's probably going to be a financial issue at one point, but I was just wondering if we've done any of that in information gathering. Thank you.
Yeah, certainly. I'll start with a couple comments and I'll pass it over to both Austin and Amanda, because we've done a lot of work in the organization on AI. We have policies in place already. We launched the Microsoft Copilot, and we've allowed our staff to work with AI with some really strict guidelines on how things need to happen. With, I guess, the biggest theme around that would be using AI is important because it can make your time and energy so much more efficient in getting things done, but it needs to have that human connection where you need to double check it. And at the end of the day, you're responsible for what you're putting out. So I'll let Austin and Amanda speak to it, but it's something that we're using more and more. It's at our fingertips, but we're being very careful on how we use it because things can go wrong. So we're making sure we're doing it right. Austin?
The really nice thing about Copilot in particular is because it's a Microsoft product, it falls under our tenancy suite, which means that any data retention, like if you save a document in Excel and it saves to your OneDrive, that document is protected. It's not something that Microsoft sends out. Copilot follows the same requirements where anything that Copilot touches within our, I guess you call it our umbrella of services, is private. The new financial software that we're moving to, Business Central, because it's a Microsoft product, any integration of AI within the new software is also falling under our tenancy suite and essentially is another version of Copilot. So as we have started to explore that new financial system and look at some of the things that AI can help us with, another big one is like bank reconciliations, for example, where we're trying to marry up transactions between our system and what actually appeared in the bank. AI is pretty good at recognizing patterns, way better than we are. And we want to be able to use those features, but we have security and privacy concerns with that. So that's why we're so careful about it. But that's why it's great that this is a Microsoft product, is because it does fall under our tenancy suite and provide us with that level of assurance of the privacy of our data.
Amanda, do you have anything to add on from the IT team? I just know our IT team is kind of leading the way, doing the research and making sure that we're up to speed and things are going quite well.
Thank you. I've just noticed there's two major concerns. I noticed the university here is having a problem with AI and the students are using it to do all their, whatever they need to do for reports. And the other one was CRA, our Canadian Tax Gathering. They put a plan in place that monitored, I think it was wages, how to pay and who to pay. They have a real problem with that program they put in. And I don't imagine ours is anything close. There's 250,000 people that they're trying to sort out as they haven't been paid, or they've been overpaid and been underpaid. And it's been going on now since 2019 and they still haven't got it sorted out. So there are issues that, that come up. So that's just what I've seen in the happening currently. Thank you.
We're pretty happy with our pace when we're looking at AI and how we're managing things. And, you know, there's lots more we can do. And even once our financial system and HRIS system comes up, there'll be so many more efficiencies that we can continue to build. And I know Austin he loves that stuff, and that'll be one of his focus areas kind of going forward, is just to make things easier, more accurate, and making sure we're following the rules. So.
Thank you. Seeing nothing else, we're going to move on then to new business. And I don't know if any of the committee members here have anything that they want to bring up under new business. Seeing none. Oh,
I don't have new business, but again, I just wanted to apologize. This wasn't a traditional finance type meeting, but I hope you appreciate the update based on kind of the situation we are in, and things will, you know, get back to normal in the very near future. So thanks for your tolerating that.
thank you. It was actually nice to have this opportunity to go over things and to hear sort of firsthand how things are going with finance. And I'm appreciate, and I'm sure we all do here, the opportunity to hear this information and have these conversations, ask these questions. So I think we'll look forward to the rest of the budget conversations and whatnot that are still coming forward to us here as we head towards March 25th and try and get the budget wrapped up. So again, thank you everybody for your time. Meeting is adjourned.